Welcome to the third week of At Home with Miss Dana and Penny the Pup, and welcome to my kitchen. This week's theme is bread, and you might be asking, why are we talking about bread, and what kind of theme is that? Well, that's a simple one. Last Sunday was World Communion Sunday, and one of the main elements in communion is bread. And this week's Bible verse mentions bread, but not in the way you would normally think. Our Bible verse comes from the book of John, chapter 6, verse 35. And it says, Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. Now, Jesus isn't talking about bread like we think of, like a slice of bread for a sandwich or a roll that we have with dinner. But we'll talk about that more in just a little bit. First, Penny has a story to share with you, and it's entitled Rescued. You ready, Miss Penny? Okay. It says, Hi there, I'm Penny the Pup, and I'm going to tell you something I bet you never knew about me. I'm a rescue dog. I was rescued by a wonderful organization called New Leash on Life. They found me in a house where there were lots of dogs, way too many dogs. We were sad. Sometimes we were hungry too. There were so many dogs eating at the same time, and I'm not very big. So the bigger dogs would push ahead and get most of the food before I could even reach it. Many nights I went to sleep with my tummy growling. I was sad and very, very hungry. That house was not safe for me, so the animal rescue found a foster home for me. That means that I was going to live in a new temporary home for a while until someone would choose me and adopt me permanently. I was glad to go where there was enough food and not too many dogs. But I was worried that nobody would adopt me because I wasn't fancy and I wasn't a cute puppy. I liked my foster family a lot, but I wasn't sure how long I would be able to stay with them. Then one day I had a big, wonderful surprise. Can you guess what that surprise was? I'll tell you. My mom, Miss Dana, to you, who was my foster parent, told the rescue that she wanted me to be her forever dog. That meant that she would adopt me and I would live with her forever. And I would always, always have enough food to eat and enough water to drink, and I would be loved forever and ever. Thank you, Mom, for loving me so much. I love you too. Well, thank you, Penny. Bringing Penny into our home was one of the best things we ever did. And she said she might not be the fanciest dog, but look at this face. She is so cute, and she makes us happy every day. So that goes both ways. Now we're going to do a little baking. So I am going to put Miss Penny down because as cute as she is, dogs should not be baking. We don't want that dog hair in our food. So say bye, Miss Penny, and we will see you again next week. Okay, this week I dropped off bags at everybody's house. If you didn't get one, please email me at dana@pcbarrington.org and I'll make sure that you do get one. But in that was supplies for the whole rest of the month of October. Some of the supplies that we needed for our crafts were getting a little big to mail. So I figured just put them all together in a big bag and deliver them. And then each week I'll still mail you out the lesson and the story, but you'll already have all the supplies. This week we have, it says week 3, and it says the bread is our theme. And along with the bag comes a pan because we're going to be doing some baking. And if you wonder what the red thing is with your pan, it is a lid. So after you do your baking, you can cover it with a lid. Pretty cute. So what we're going to be baking is cornbread. And since we're all baking at home and we have different kitchens and different setups, I wanted to make it pretty simple. Hopefully when we get back in the church, maybe we can have a real bread making class. But for now, we're going to be doing a Jiffy cornbread mix. So So what I need you to do is find a bowl. I'm going to use just a shallow bowl like this, but any bowl would do. And we're just going to follow the directions that are on the box. Now it first says to preheat your oven for 400 degrees, which I have already done because it takes a little time to preheat. And then this is really simple. It just takes 1 egg and a 1/3 cup of milk. So we're going to open up our box. Maybe. It's not so easy to open. And all the good stuff that you would normally use, flour and all that you would normally get, is already mixed all in there. So we're going to empty that into our bowl. All right. And then I'm going to get a 1/3 cup of milk, and I have my milk right here. So just put a 1/3 cup in my measuring cup, or if you have a liquid measuring cup, certainly you can do that. And I'm gonna stick my milk back in the refrigerator so it doesn't get warm, and also grab that egg. So we'll pop right in here to the refrigerator. Grab the eggs and continue on our way. We just need 1 egg. And if you have a hard time breaking eggs, don't worry, that is not an easy task. So a parent can help you, but you can just crack it on the end. Oh, I gotta put the bowl down. And then put your fingers in there, or rip it open, and then get rid of the eggshell. And now we're going to stir it all together. And as I'm doing this, I realized I just missed a very important step, especially after holding Penny. You should always wash your hands. And in this time of COVID, we should be washing our hands a lot anyway. I did wash my hands before I started, but after I put down Penny, I should have washed them again. So I'm not actually touching the batter, but make sure before you start your cooking that you wash your hands nice and thoroughly with some warm water and soap. Okay, so we get it all mixed. It might be a little lumpy, that doesn't matter. And then we're going to take our pan, but first, in order for it not to stick in the pan, we're going to spray it with a little canola oil, but whatever vegetable oil spray you have, or if you just take a paper towel and rub some oil, that works too. Spray the bottom, and then we're going to dump our batter in. All right. Put that off to the side. We're going to spread it around so it's nice and even. And then we're going to throw it in the oven. And I believe it says, let me check my box, to do it in a pan, it says 20 to 25 minutes. I think it's a little closer to that 20 minutes. You might even want to do it a little less than that, and then check it and make sure that you're not overcooking it. It seemed to cook really fast for me when I tried this earlier. So I'm going to pop this in my oven. There we go. And let that bake. Okay, now, as I said, I tried this earlier, so I already have some cornbread already made, and it's very tasty. So there's plenty to enjoy with your family. after you get it made. And I did do 1 box per family. Unless you're a larger family, then I included 2 boxes for you. Because this is an activity that the whole family can do together to make their bread. Now, bread is everywhere, or at least everywhere that you eat. It's slices on a sandwich, or like I said, rolls at a table for dinner, or garlic bread. That's all the obvious bread. But if you think bread is in a lot of things, you might put bread in meatballs or meatloaf. You might make bread pudding, pizza crust. That is bread. Chicken nuggets have bread on them. So bread is everywhere, just like Jesus is everywhere. And when Jesus says that he is the bread of life, he's not talking about an actual piece of bread. He's talking about feeding us spiritually. Bread fills our tummy, and Jesus fills our hearts and our spirits. So when you think of bread, take the pizza for example. If you take the crust off, what are you left with? Sauce and cheese and maybe a couple toppings. Well, you might not be able to eat that. Maybe you could eat it with a fork, but it's not really pizza unless you have the crust. So with Jesus in our lives, he gives us the backbone or the crust of what our lives become, and helps us to be the people that we're meant to be, and gives us that stability and that strength that we need, just like the crust gives for the pizza. So just remember that Jesus is there to hold us up and to be with us, and is always with us. And he fills our hearts just like the bread fills our bellies. Now, we have one other activity to do that also involves dough, but this is not the dough that you're going to eat. Has anybody ever heard of salt dough? Salt dough is really simple. It is kind of like a Play-Doh, but it's made out of flour and salt. So basically it's just a 2-to-1 ratio. So 2 times as much flour as you have salt. But that's a lot of salt. So this is not something you'd want to eat. It would be edible because it's flour and salt, but it'd be extremely salty. So I would, if you were to take a bite, you would probably not like the flavor. So this is really simple. This is a dough that you can mold it kind of like a Play-Doh, but it's going to harden. You can either bake it in the oven so that it hardens really fast, or you can let it air dry. Air drying will take a few days to really get it dry, and especially depending on how thick you make it. So I have another bowl, and we're going to take, I believe this was half a cup of flour. Let me look at my directions. Yes, half a cup of flour. It's already measured out for you, so you don't need to worry about doing that. But if you like the salt dough, then you can certainly make more with ingredients you can find at home. And then we're going to have a quarter cup of salt. Let's see if I can open my bag. A quarter cup of salt. So twice as much flour as salt. And then what binds this together is water. But before we combine that with water, we're going to stir it all together, and I want it well mixed. So you don't really see the flour and the salt, you just see an even consistency throughout. We're going to mix it all up so that the salt really blends in. Okay, and then I have some water here. Of course, you can just get it out of your sink, but this was easier. And we're going to start with 2 tablespoons. Not a teaspoon, but a tablespoon, so that's the bigger one. We're going to put 2 tablespoons. Chances are we're going to need more than that, but it's better to start with not enough than too much. Although, if you do end up putting in too much water, never worry, you can just add a little more flour. And usually just a little tiny bit more is all that it's going to take. So I'm going to keep mixing that. As I suspected, you see it's all crumbly. Forgive me for my light. I have a big, strong light above my head, as most kitchens do, so you can see what you're doing. Okay, so this is still very crumbly, so I'm going to add another tablespoon, and I'm going to stir that up and see how we go. Now, if this is not enough, when I did this earlier, I was like, oh, I'm just going to add another tablespoon. Make it 4 tablespoons. But that was actually way too much water. So if this, you can see mine still has powdery stuff, so it's not quite enough. So I'm going to add just a little bit more, maybe a few more drops. I do not need a whole tablespoon. And if you're having a hard time stirring it, if it's getting where most of the powder is together, or turning into dough, but not quite all, then lose the spoon. What we're going to do is start kneading it with our hands. And yeah, I can tell that it was really wet in spots and dry in others, but when I knead it, it's going to all come together. And here, I think even though I'm kneading it, I still have a lot of powder, so I'm going to put just a little bit more water in there. And that should about do it. So I just about needed 4 tablespoons, but not quite all. Oh, see? Now you can see it's all getting all mixed together. So now I have a dough. I'm going to knead that all together. And you can tell, it feels salty. You know how salt is all granular, so you can feel the salt in it. Now what I want you to do, now at this point, I'm just going to use the plain white. But if you wanted to make a color, all you would have to do is put a little food coloring in it. And if you wanted a couple colors, divide it in half. And you could put a couple drops of food coloring in the 2 halves. So you can make different colors. But I'm going to use the white, and then I am going to color after I have it all done. So I'm still going to divide it in half, because there is actually enough dough here to make a couple things. But what I want you to make first of all, since we're talking about Jesus and God, is I want you to make a cross. So the best way to make a cross is, I broke it in half, but actually I think it should be more 1/3 and 2/3, because when you make a cross, it's not the cross, the horizontal side is frequently, it depends on your cross, but most crosses it's shorter. So then I'm just going to roll it out, and then I'm going to take my other side, my shorter side, and roll that out. Now this is how I'm doing it. This is a creative project, so however you want to make your cross, you can do it. There's multiple ways. Maybe you start flat, or use a cookie cutter if you happen to have a cross cookie cutter. Now to make this a little easier, I'm going to indent where I am going to put my horizontal piece. And there I have like that. And then kind of mold it together a little bit so that it combines. And there we go. I have my cross. Now, with the other half, you can make whatever you want. You can make an animal, you can get some cookie cutters and see what you have and roll it out like you're making a cookie, but make something, even poke a hole through it, and you can have an ornament type thing, or something you can decorate your room with, whatever you want. And so part of this project is making a cross that will remind us of our love for Jesus, and the other part is using your creativity and just in your imagination. Now when you're all done with this, you have 2 choices. You can either stick it in the oven, and that's what I'm planning on doing. You put it in the oven I'm going to put it on a little parchment paper. You put it on for and I really didn't make anything with this, but we'll put it right there. You put it on for at least an hour at 200 degrees in the oven. Can't do that right now because I am making my cornbread, but when my cornbread's done, I'm going to put this in the oven at 200, and then for about at least an hour. It could be a couple hours. Keep an eye on it. It's a really low temperature. Basically, you're just drying it out. If you don't want to use the oven or can't for some reason, then just leave it out on the table, and it will take a few days to dry out, and flip it over every once in a while so that the backside can dry out as well. I'm going to put that, I'm going to lose it, put it over there so it's ready for me. Now, if you don't have time to bake it for a couple hours, but you just, if you don't have time to the cross or use the dough for other reasons, then you can put it in a Ziploc bag, and then it should keep it a little while. As long as it's not getting that direct air to it, you should be good. Now, I already made a couple of crosses. This is my cross that I baked. This was for about an hour. It could have gone a little bit longer, but that was actually sufficient. And then it dried out the rest of the way, just sitting on the counter. And I just used crayons to decorate it. But you can use, if you have paints or markers, anything you want to decorate it. And then this one is the one that I let air dry. It's a little wider. It has a little different consistency, but it worked just fine. And I'm going to just take this. Here I have some markers. These are actually Sharpies because I could not find my washable markers, so I'm going to be real careful. And I'm just going to make some polka dots. So however you want to decorate it is fine. Again, this is supposed to be a creative project, so use your imagination. And when you're doing that and you're making your crosses, just think about what it means when Jesus said he is the bread of life, and what we did by molding the crosses, that Jesus helps to mold us into the people that we are and that we should be, and gives us lessons about what it means to be a friend, what it means to be a helper, what it means to be a good person. And just remember those lessons, that the lessons that you learn in Sunday school, and what will help you develop into a responsible, loving adult. So just as Jesus is the bread spiritually and in our heart, he is also what helps to mold us into the human beings that we were meant to be. Now, the very last thing I have is a challenge. We're going to add a challenge to each of these. Last week you had a recycling challenge, and this week it's going to be a prayer challenge. As we talk about God and him filling us up and the love we have, well, one really great way to feel that love and to feel God's presence is just simply by talking to God. And how we do that is in prayer. Now, you can say a prayer any time during the day. You could see a beautiful butterfly and just say, wow, God, look at that. Thank you so much for all the beautiful things in nature that you give to us. Or you could have a bad day and be like, dear Jesus, I really need some help right now. Please give me the courage to get through the rest of this day. Or it could just be a prayer of thanksgiving, that you're so happy to have your good food on the table and parents that take care of you, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, whoever it may be. So the challenge is to say at least one prayer every single day. Now, in the lesson, I said to make your prayer the last thing you do at night, is to say thank you, God, and then think of something that was good that happened during the day, and thank God for the good things that happen. Now, if you're tired at night and trying to remember to say your prayers right before bed is not the best time for you, no worries. Then make it a morning prayer. First thing when you wake up, thank God for something good that either happened the day before or that you're excited about for the day to come. And if you're not a morning person either, no problem. Say a prayer at a mealtime or when you get home from school, or actually these days I guess you're already home, although I do believe some of you are starting to go back to in-school lessons, so hopefully everybody will be back sooner rather than later. So just remember that if you can every day think of a time during the day that you can pray. Now if it's a different time every week, that's okay, but if you can think about doing it at the same time every day, then that will just be a reminder for you. And since we're talking about prayer, we're going to end in prayer. So if we all bow our heads, we're going to say the prayer. Dear Jesus, thank you for loving me and caring for me forever. In Jesus' name, amen. And thank you for joining me once again. I hope you enjoyed the activities in the story, and we will see you next week. Bye.